Hello, and welcome to the Book of Heroes podcast. We are a weekly show dedicated to helping you get better at Storybook Brawl. I'm Sidney, and this is my co-host, Jesse. What's going on this week, Jesse?
Not too much, but thanks for asking. I had a more normal week this week, which means I can't say my typical catchphrase of I didn't get to play as much as I wanted, because that was not the case.
You got to play exactly as much as you wanted, or did you get to play more than you wanted?
Exactly as much as I wanted, because I have self-control.
I'm glad to hear that.
It's a really important trait. I'd recommend it.
Good to know. I'll keep that in mind.
Anyway.
This week we are going to be talking about 2-card combos.
While technically Storybook Brawl doesn't use the concept of cards, we're just using a general term to denote interactions between treasures and characters and spells that are cool and unique.
Yeah, I think one of the most enjoyable parts of the game is figuring out when 2 cards have a particular interaction that's, much more than the sum of its parts. And identifying these combos is a good way to help yourself level up in the game.
Yeah, today we're going to be focusing on combos that are not core to a central strategy or literally the description of how a card works, but more along the lines of interesting interactions that you might not think to put together normally, or you should keep an eye out for because they're really strong.
Yeah, similarly, we're going to be focusing on characters, treasures, and spells, as you mentioned, and we'll pull it off on the hero-specific combos. Some heroes, like Trophy Hunter, could be their own episode that just talks about all the interesting things they can do with their hero power, but we just want to focus on stuff that's available for every hero.
Yeah, so we won't be talking about Romeo and Juliet, because that's a pretty straightforward, printed on the text of the card combo. And likewise, we're not going to talk about combos such as River Wish Mermaid and Lightning Dragon, because those are pretty core to the Slay archetype.
Yeah, but that actually is a good point, because we've definitely seen a lot of new archetypes come out of combos that previously existed in the game, but as the metagame has shifted, they've just become strong enough to become really effective, whether it's the Lightning Dragon River Wish Mermaid or Copycat plus Good Boy that we saw a few metagames ago.
Some of the things we talk about today could be really common in the future if some tweaks make it to change the strength of that combo to be above the other things you could be doing during a game.
Yeah, exactly.
We're going to be presenting these in no particular order because they're a little hard to organize and we didn't feel it was worth the effort.
Honesty. All right, so that brings us to, I think, the very first combo you taught me about, Jesse.
Yeah, Humpty Dumpty plus 4 Glory. 4 Glory reads that you get a character of your level if you win your next combat. Humpty Dumpty is the strongest level 2 character, so turn 3, 2.1 or even 2.2 if you have some extra economy somehow, you can buy a Humpty Dumpty and a 4 Glory to get a free random level 2 character for the price of 1 gold instead of 2.
Yeah, it's not groundbreaking, but if you see a Humpty Dumpty and a 4 Glory in your first shop, something to keep in mind, you can even buy the Humpty Dumpty on 2.0, which should win you that first fight as well. Although this is definitely a strategy with a big disclaimer of
not 100% successful.
Yes.
All right. After that, we've got one of my favorite combos, Darkwood Creeper and Ring of Meteors. Ring of Meteors is a level 2 treasure that deals 1 damage to all characters at the start of each fight, and Darkwood Creeper reads whenever a character survives damage, it gains +1 attack permanently. This means that at the start of every one of your fights, all of your characters that can survive the Ring of Meteors will permanently gain +1 attack, which is pretty significant scaling for how quickly you can put this combo together in the early game.
Yeah, I'm not that big a fan of Darkwood Creeper normally, but if I get the Ring of Meteors as a level 2 treasure option and I see a Darkwood Creeper in that same shop, I'm really likely to pick this up. Like you said, it's not very much work to put together and it really scales your board quickly, especially if you can pick up high health characters or ranged characters to go with it.
Yeah, I particularly like picking something that scales well with attack, like a Wretched Mummy or a Sherwood Sure Shot, giving it a little bit of extra health with like a Sugar and Spice, so that it survives the meteors and permanently scales its attack from early on. I'd even say that I prioritize the ring a bit more than I should, because I could always find this combo later and put it together.
Yeah, it also sets you up well for going into treants later, and once you have an upgraded Darkwood Creeper, the new Burning Tree, fantastic pick.
Another one of my favorite combos is Fairy Godmother plus Lancelot. Fairy Godmother gives, whenever a good character dies, it gives all your other good characters plus 2 health for that brawl. So if you have a Fairy Godmother in slot 6 or 7 and a Lancelot farther back than you would normally put him, also 6 or 7, and you have a bunch of other good characters, that temporary health buff can get Lancelot over 25 and trigger his quest pretty much immediately, assuming you have a little bit of animal summoners or a little bit of other buffs on that Lancelot.
Yeah, to make the numbers work on this, you usually also need a Princess Baby Bear or something to give Lancelot a starting buff. But once you have one of those things, this is a really easy way to get a level 5 treasure and upgrade your Lancelot, which can set you up well for Slay. At that point, you're probably just ditching the Fairy Godmother. But
yeah, you could even just buy the Fairy Godmother for 1 round to do this, because it is pretty much a surefire level 5 treasure.
one of my favorite characters sadly hasn't gotten as much use lately, but Copycat plays really well if you can put a powerful character in a croc bait. So something like a Storm King that's picked up a lot of attack and health, or really any character that doesn't need to be on the field at the start of the game, plays super well if you can put it in a croc bait and then put a Copycat in front of it. This is a way to plug Copycat into your composition, even if you didn't have any Last Breath effects before. So if you see a croc bait and a Copycat in your shop, that's all you need.
Yeah, and you might even want to consider picking up a croc bait if you have the spare money for no other purpose than this later, as it's one of the ways that you can improve a board that would theoretically be otherwise perfect.
Yeah, extra copies of your best character is nothing to sneeze at. Another thing that you can do with Crocbait that I try to look out for is combining it with Bear Stain. So Bear Stain doubles the attack and health of your summoned animals. But if you put a animal in a Crocbait, it counts as being summoned. So Bear Stain can double that or more if you have multiple Bear Stains or an upgraded one.
This is particularly good with a couple of the animals that either care about stats or already have really high starting stats. So Hungry Hippocampus can get to really high healths, and this combo can give it enough attack to be relevant in a late game fight. Or even something like Wombats in Disguise pops out with a bunch of extra stats that are also applied to whatever it summons.
This also works with Good Boy, who obviously benefits a ton from the extra stats. If you happen to be running Bear Stain and Good Boy already, this can be a way to get a strong Good Boy. If I'm running Bear Stain, I'm definitely on the lookout for Crocbait to pair with it.
Yeah. Plus the Crocbait's an animal itself, so it gets the +2/+2 from Bear Stain.
Woo!
Yeah. Value. Speaking of value, though, another combo that's not the most intuitive is Doom Breath plus Riverwish Mermaid. Riverwish Mermaid gives support. The characters I'm supporting get Slay +1/+1 permanently, and Doom Breath damages everything behind the character it attacks. Which means Doom Breath could theoretically slay 2 or 3 characters in a single attack, triggering the Riverwish Mermaid that many times.
Yeah, so just getting like +3/+3 is not that impressive, but usually you're pairing Riverwish Mermaid with Baba Yaga Horn of Olympus or Bad Moon, and with some of that stuff in play, you can scale a Doom Breath incredibly quickly. If I'm playing the Mermaid Slay composition that we talked about a few episodes back, Doom Breath is one of the characters I'm looking for right when I hit level 6.
Yeah, speaking of level 6, this next combo was a fan favorite for Treants back in the day and caused the Round Table to get nerfed. Ashwood Elm plus the Round Table gives you absolutely absurd stats on all of your Treants.
Right. Ashwood Elm is giving at least +20 attack.
Almost always more.
Usually more to your Treants, and then the Round Table equalizes attack health differences. So once you get a buffed or upgraded Ashwood Elm, this can add a really absurd amount of stats to your board, which only gets stronger when there's an Echo Wood involved as well.
Yeah, it's not super intuitive because both Ashwood Elm and the Round Table say at the start of the brawl do something, but in this particular case, the game will order them in the way that is the most beneficial to you. So Ashwood Elm will massively increase all your Treants attacks first, and then the Round Table will set their health to their attack.
Yeah, and worth noting, since the Round Table is a level 7 treasure, you're not usually going to have access to it, but it's something you want to keep in mind when you're picking level 7 treasures, maybe from a treasure map or from Horde Dragon. If you are set up reasonably well for Treants, this can be one of the strongest level 7 treasures It also plays really well with the new Burning Tree, which I think still ends up with higher health than attack, but it gets a really high attack to start with.
Sidney, we're talking about 2-card combos here, not 3-card combos. Come on.
My apologies. Moving on to some of the more treasure-based combos. What about Piggy Bank plus Holy Grail?
Yeah, Piggy Bank reads that your gold carries over from round to round, and Holy Grail gives you more gold than you could ever spend. The drawback of Holy Grail is usually that you lose all the gold you can't spend, but Piggy Bank lets you keep it around, effectively giving you infinite gold for the rest of the game.
Yeah, so the tricky thing about this is you don't usually know that you're going to get Holy Grail. Level 7 treasures tend to be kind of unreliable. And Piggy Bank isn't that strong if you're picking it up on its own. So are you trying to triple level 2 characters on your Holy Grail turn to find a Piggy Bank?
You might if it's still fairly early in the game. You got a level 7 treasure through a treasure map or some other improved level treasure means. And you still have a fair amount of health to play with so that you can afford wasting time on your Holy Grail turn to look for a level 2 treasure. If you are already at level 6 or you're really low health and can't afford to lose your next fight, you might just try and make the strongest board that you can, getting as many level 6 triples as you can and replacing all of your treasures and your board instead.
Yeah, I think this is mostly something when you're playing, let's say, Celestial Tiger, and you just get a very early Holy Grail, or maybe you did it off a early treasure map plus Lancelot or something. Worth noting, Horde Dragon does not have access to this as he is incapable of getting level 2 treasures.
But if you do It Was All a Dream into Horde Dragon after finding the Piggy Bank, it could work. Long story short, though, you're very unlikely to hit this combo, but keep it in mind, because there might be that one dream game where you can pull it off.
Yeah. I think one combo that I discovered early on and was really happy with was Lightning Dragon and Coin of Charon. So Coin of Charon's pretty strong, but the tricky thing about it is you can't really control where that buff goes.
Unless you have a character that always attacks first with a fairly low starting health.
Yeah. So the most impressive thing about Lightning Dragon has always been getting it to survive its first attack. And Coin of Charon does exactly that. After a couple of attacks, it's usually going to die, and it's usually going to get big enough that it actually starts surviving those attacks. I think this has been a little eclipsed by River Wish Mermaid Lightning Dragon, but it's something that you can do with Lightning Dragon even without the mermaid, and it also plays okay in that Slay comp.
Yeah, this doesn't account for like Baba Yaga or other effects that increase the number of Slay triggers you get, but I always think of it as Coin of Charon is +4/+4, whereas River Wish Mermaid is +1/+1 or +2/+2 on your Lightning Dragon. So it actually can scale it a lot faster until you get to the later parts of the game.
Yeah, fair point.
Yeah, so we have 2 combos that we wanted to call out regarding Reduplicator, which is the treasure that the first time you summon a character, it summons an additional copy of that character.
Yeah, the key thing with Reduplicator is you really want to be summoning something strong, and usually that's a character that you buy rather than a sort of token character that's summoned by a Last Breath effect. So the first way to combo with this is with Phoenix Feather, which automatically summons the character with the most power. Reduplicator is like a mimic for your Phoenix Feather, essentially.
Yeah, at the cost of level 4 treasure instead of a level 5 treasure. Additionally, you could also do this with Crocbait, putting your strongest character into a crocodile, and when the crocodile dies, you'll get 2 copies of your strongest character instead of the normal 1.
Yeah, in that case, you probably want to put the crocodile in the backline, so it isn't your first character to die and waste the Reduplicator, but still, pretty strong.
Yeah, ways to get a effectively higher level treasure using just the Reduplicator.
Yeah.
On the topic of Crocbait, it has a really weird interaction with the level 7 treasure Black Prism, which makes it so that when you cast a targeted spell, it targets all of your characters rather than just one.
Yeah, so what you would expect is that all your characters are put into crocodiles. What you might not realize, unless you've done this before, is that Crocodile is a level 6 character that upgrades when you find 3 of them. If you have 7 characters on board and 2 in your hand, casting Crocbait with Black Prism will result in 3 upgraded crocodiles and 3 level 6 treasures.
Yeah, obviously this is really strong, but on top of the 3 level 6 treasures, one of which you're probably skipping to keep your Black Prism, you also just put an entire board into 3 characters, letting you play 4 new characters as the front line for your golden Crocbait army.
Yeah, of course, You do have to worry a little bit about positioning. You may not want all your support characters to be randomly summoned into the front line. And I don't think they've actually added a user interface to let you see what's in your crocodile, so it might be a little hard to keep track of. But I don't know, it's still pretty cool.
And really strong.
On another subject, one combo that I've seen that can really take a level 6 treasure to the next level is Spear of Achilles and Court Wizard. So +7/+7 to your attacking characters is already pretty good. But the whole gimmick of Court Wizard is that it gets to attack several times during the brawl. What I've seen pretty frequently is just a front line of Royals and then a back line of 2 Court Wizards. And often by the time their turn comes around, they've gained like +21/+21. And if you're doing anything like Romeo and Juliet that gives you additional Royals, they can get even bigger.
Yeah, on top of all that, Court Wizard is obviously a ranged character, so none of those attacks are harming the Court Wizard, making them free and powerful.
Yeah. Since it's the title of our podcast, I suppose we would be remiss not to mention Court Wizard and Book of Heroes. This is a much less powerful interaction, but your Court Wizards are a little more likely than average to quote-unquote slay some evil characters on your opponent's side, and they're also a character that benefits a lot from the additional scaling from Book of Heroes.
Yep, it's one of the few ways to make our namesake a playable treasure, though it still does rely a lot on what your opponents are playing.
Yeah.
Something that relies a lot on what you are playing, though, is Mirror Mirror. We've talked about Mirror Mirror a couple of times on our previous episodes, but 2 of the combos that we wanted to call out with Mirror Mirror specifically, again, were Good Boy and the Storm King. Mirror Mirror plus Good Boy summons a 1/1 copy of the Good Boy in the square of the dead Good Boy.
Right, but I think what's not immediately obvious is that the last breath of the dead Good Boy buffs the new Good Boy. So you're essentially getting that whole bonus to your team again. And let's say you have 2 Good Boys in the front line, you just get to go nuts.
Yeah, I've said before that doubling is one of the strongest abilities you can do in the game. And the Mirror Mirror effectively doubles the effect of each of your Good Boys, who are already doubling each other. It gets pretty absurd quickly, even if the Good Boy has modest stats.
Yeah. I think the other thing that Mirror Mirror does that's just kind of incredible is its combination with Storm King. So Mirror Mirror summons a 1/1 copy of a character, but Storm King's ability says that it gets +2/+2 for each spell you've cast, and that affects the copies too. So this is effectively a Phoenix Feather for your Storm King, except it applies to every Storm King, and it also affects the rest of your front line, which might be some monster books, for example.
Yeah, for comparison, the default stats for a Storm King is 2/2. So your Mirror Mirror is resummoning it with only 1 less attack and health.
Yeah, it's pretty nuts.
After Mirror Mirror, we're going to move on to a spell with some pretty interesting interactions. Mix-a-Wizzle. Mix-a-Wizzle forms a 2-card combo with any of the transform spells. Mix-a-Wizzle True Love's Kiss is a real classic, giving a character 2 levels higher than the original one.
And it's permanent.
And makes it permanent. But Mix-a-Wizzle Shard of the Ice Queen also gives you effectively a True Love's Kiss for the cost of 1 instead of 3.
Yeah, but there's actually a couple other ways to take advantage of Mix-a-Wizzle. I think one that's a little unintuitive is Crocbait. Let's say you have an upgraded Nia, and you hit it with Mix-a-Wizzle, you get a upgraded level 6 character, throw it in a crocodile, and you won't lose your Mix-a-Wizzle.
Yeah, it stays as that upgraded level 6 character every time that crocodile dies. Additionally, if you are playing Gwen, or you have some way to cast both Mix-a-Wizzle and Knighthood in a single turn, upgrading the Mix-a-Wizzle character, assuming it's not already upgraded, also counts as a transformation effect, and you permanently keep that upgraded character.
Yeah, I guess we said we weren't going to do hero-specific combos, and I feel like this mostly comes up with Gwen, because at level 6, you're usually Mix-a-Wizzling stuff that is already upgraded. But it's still good to know about. Another spell that's really astonishingly effective when you combine it with a treasure is Masquerade Ball when combined with Forking Rod. So, at first glance, this is just what it says on the card. You cast Masquerade Ball twice because it's a spell that costs 2 or less. But if you do this at level 4, you're probably getting a shop full of level 6 characters. That is a really good return on your investment of 2 gold.
Yeah, that can help you set up for your late game comp even earlier than normal, or it can just give you a huge power spike because the raw stats of those level 6 characters are going to overwhelm your opponents for a couple of rounds.
Yeah, plus For example, it's much easier to complete a Hercules quest when your opponents are on level 4 and he gets in 3 or 4 hits in a game.
Another combo that I particularly like is Ring of Meteors and Poison Apple. Poison Apple sets a random character on your opponent's team at the start of the brawl's health to 1, which, while strong, isn't necessarily a brawl-winning effect because that character still gets to attack or get attacked and deal its damage. However, if you have the treasure Ring of Meteors, which deals 1 damage at the start of the brawl to all characters, your Poison Apple turns into a deadly Poison Apple, killing a random opponent's character at the start of the brawl.
Right, as opposed to normal Poison Apples, which are harmless.
Yeah, well, they give you a mild stomachache.
Yeah, this is definitely a spell that you want to cast almost all the time when you have a ring.
Yeah, it becomes on par, I would say, with Pigomorph at a much cheaper cost.
Yeah. The last spell combo we wanted to talk about here was Evil Twin, and specifically in combination with Black Prism. This is sort of similar to Crocbait Black Prism, but in this case, as long as you have one good character, you can cast Evil Twin on it and get an evil copy of everything on your board. So a lot of times that can give you an instant treasure or just give you an extra Storm King or something along those lines.
It is worth noting, though, that if you're playing a full board, you won't have room for all of these characters if you don't triple them. So just keep that in mind.
Sure, but you can buy and sell things from the shop and then you get a rebate on your 8 gold you spent on the Evil Twin.
And those are all the 2-card combos that we wanted to highlight for today. But there were a couple of, we like to call them non-combos, that may or may not have happened to one of us before, and we wanted to call them out so you don't make the same mistakes.
Yeah, the first one, I think I posted about this on the Discord a couple weeks ago. Black Prism and Feed the Kraken is very tempting when you're going off with spells and you're like, oh man, I just need 2 more gold. I've got this crystal ball. The Feed the Kraken will be replaced right away. I'll just eat this level 2 character on my board.
Turns out the Kraken's appetite cannot be easily sated, and he will eat your entire board.
Yeah, it's a rough world out there. That also applies to the end, by the way. But at least that one gives you health back, and if you're at level 4, that might be a legitimate tactic.
Yeah, but also if you're at level 4 with a Black Prism, you're probably going to win anyway. So all that health would just be immediately wasted in your next couple of brawls as you basically are starting over. Would not recommend it.
Fair enough.
Speaking of things I wouldn't recommend, it's very easy to forget that Copycat and Prize Pig do not synergize well with each other. While you're probably not positioning them in a way where Copycat would trigger Prize Pig's last breath anyway, you would be effectively giving your opponent free gold.
Yeah, that's maybe not the worst thing. I mean, Bear does it, and he's historically been one of the strongest heroes, so...
Yeah,
But it's not something you want to purposefully do, I don't think. Unless you just feel like...
The real, Robin Hood, giving wealth to the poor.
Yeah. And speaking of Robin Hood, that's the last nombo. I think this is one that gets me a lot when I'm playing a good boy composition. You see a Cupid in your shop, and you think, oh man, this fits perfectly. It's a ranged character. I can put it in my backline along with my Robin Hood, and it'll pick up the bonus from good boy. Well, it will. But if you're relying on that Robin Hood to give plus 15 attack to your good boy, it's not going to work. The Cupid's going to get it instead. So just be a little careful when you are playing both of those characters in the same comp.
Yeah, your Cupid will steal that 15 attack that could be going to all of your characters, hoarding it selfishly for himself, and then not really using it effectively either because his ability doesn't care too much about how much attack he has.
Yeah. I think I'm going to try to edit in a sad trombone noise somewhere in there.
If you hear that section, that means he couldn't find one.
All right. I think that's it for today. A bit of a shorter episode, but we hope you had fun listening to it, and maybe you learned about a few 2-card combos that you didn't know existed.
Keep an eye out for these to improve the strength of your board in the situations where you pick up one piece but not the other. Or maybe you can even just try building around one of them for fun.
Yeah. We'd love to hear from you as well. If there's a combo we didn't mention today that you've really enjoyed, please let us know. And you know what, Jesse? I just realized everyone's going to comment Polywoggle and Grimsoul because we didn't talk about that one.
Yeah, that was a conscious decision because it really is just Grimsoul's ability to trigger a slay ability without having to have the character slay. And we've talked about it several times on past episodes.
Yeah, but it's still pretty cool, and I think this is a great thing to do, especially if you're playing a hero that has good access to animals. If you can get an upgraded Polywoggle on 5.0 and throw a Grimsoul in your build, you're off to the races. And it is pretty sweet. At any rate, if there's any other combos that we didn't discuss that have been your favorites, we'd love to hear from you. The best way to get in touch with us is on our Discord. There's a link in the show notes. It's a great community to folks that are looking to improve at the game. And it's also a good way to leave comments and even questions for us that we'll answer on air. You can also follow us on Twitter at Book of Heroes SBB and email us at bookofheroessbb@gmail.com. You can find our episodes on our website, bookofheroes.podbean.com, and on major podcasting platforms like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Stitcher. Lastly, you can find us playing Storybook Brawl. My username is Coco305.
And I go by Undefined. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.
So, Jesse, I think today's episode inspired a story from each of us, right?
Well, it actually wasn't today's episode that inspired my story, but rather last week's episode. We had talked about playing the Fates and how good buying a early Humpty Dumpty would be to triple into the Easter egg as a powerful early game boost. So I was playing some games as the Fates and trying it out over the course of the week. And one particular game, I started off with Humpty Dumpty on 2.0, Humpty Dumpty for Glory on 2.1, which seems great, except I lost my second fight.
Oh no. Wait, so you had 0 characters on 2.2?
So I had 0 characters going into 2.2. Luckily, I was able to get some Black Cats and some Mad Mims and continually lock my shop. And so I wasn't like horribly weak. And then as soon as I hit 3.2, I actually just bought 3 Humpty Dumpies that I had locked from my shop and tripled it and got my Easter egg anyway. And went on to win first place.
Oh my gosh, so you bought 5 Humpty Dumpties.
Over the course of my first 5 turns, yes.
Wow, that's commitment.
I mean, it worked, but I think I mostly owe that to amazing other shops rather than the obvious setback that was having 2 Humpty Dumpties die on my second turn. It turns out Merlin was pretty strong with his 2 Labyrinth Minotaurs and his Forbidden Fruit.
Well, that's a wonderful story of triumph over adversity. I thought I'd complement that with the story of opponents just going completely off the rails in a way that was very beneficial for them.
Do tell.
So there's been a month or 2 since this happened, but if I'm remembering correctly, it was actually in one of the tournaments. So I was in my final game against an opponent, and they were playing animals with Bearstain, some summoning characters, and a Hungry Hippocampus. I had a pretty strong build, and I was able to beat out that first fight against them. And in my second fight, I even managed to find a Pigomorph in the shop, so I thought, it's in the bag. But when I came back, first of all, they switched to a 5-character comp, which I want to point out is insane. In theory, should be even more advantageous with my Pigomorph. My Pigomorph did hit something. I don't remember what it was, but let me tell you the 4 characters they had left. Bearstain, Upgraded Copycat, Crocbait.
I'm guessing you saw a lot of hungry hippocampuses.
I did. I faced down no less than 3 hungry hippocampuses, all of them with over 1,000 health, and I don't remember what my comp was, but it's very hard to think of any comp that would be able to take down something like that, except maybe Scam.
That's really unfortunate. If only you had some Hermes boots, or were able to kill that copycat before it got that lethal mimic off.
Yeah, that's the crazy thing, right? Because there were so many opportunities for it to go differently. But honestly, I think I just have to hand it to my opponent, because going to 5 characters in that situation is a completely crazy play, and then it actually worked.
Yeah, they really went all in.
Yeah. I think that's it, though. See you all next week.
Toodaloo.